Hello everyone and welcome back to the JP on Comms YouTube channel for another match day preview. This time we're taking a little look at this Saturday's late kickoff, 5:20 p.m. if you weren't already sure, versus Boreham Wood on the road. And of course that game is a late kickoff due to the fact that it's going to be back on the telly. BT Sports will be hosting this game live on their sports channel, so if you do have a subscription to BT Sports, check it out over there. If you can't make the game, do not threat, and you don't have BT Sports, you can go down to the Spitfire Lounge at the Gallagher and watch the game there with hopefully a few other Maidstone fans in attendance as well. And of course, if you want to watch at home, then do feel free to do so. But I will be commentating this game. Looking forward to going to it. The Stones, of course, coming off the back of a very good performance versus Chesterfield, which unfortunately did result in a loss. But it does seem that Boreham Wood's form in the last couple of games has just slipped a tiny little bit. But they do currently sit fifth in the league table. So let's take a little look at Boreham Wood so far this season and what Maidstone can expect coming into this game. So Boreham Wood currently sit fifth in the National League table, which, looking at the current top three, that's going to be very hard to break into. This is about where the rest of the table are going to be hoping to finish as best off this season. 4th, 5th, 6th, around that region. So Boreham Wood are definitely doing very well in that sense at the moment. They've currently played 10 games like everybody else in the league. They've managed to obtain 19 points, scoring 15 goals in that time and only conceding 8. So pretty impressive from them. Not the highest scorers in the division, I must say, averaging, of course, 1.5 goals a game, conceding 0.8 goals per game. But it does seem that they are a very regimented, very solid team. So let's take a little look at some of their fixtures throughout the season, compare them to that of Maidstone's, and see how I think this game is going to go. So as it currently stands, Boreham Wood have only played one team who sit in the top half of the National League table at this point in time. Of course, after 10 games is a pretty good indicator as to how many team seasons may shape up. And as I said, they have only played one team who currently sit in the top half. The next highest team they've played is currently sitting in 13th. They played everybody else seemingly down the bottom of the table besides Maidstone and I think Halifax, the other team who are down the bottom that they have yet to face so far this season. So their one loss of the season did come to Aldershot Town. I believe that was in the second game week of the season. That was a 2-1 defeat. They've also had 4 draws, as I mentioned, against Yeovil, Gateshead, Altrincham and Notts County. So again, looking at those teams there, on paper you'd be expecting Boreham Wood to maybe have dropped points in those games. Actually, you'd think, the likes of Yeovil and Altrincham and Gateshead, considering how they fared so far this season, would almost be bankers of sorts in terms of 3 points for a team like Boreham Wood with the aspirations they've got to finish in those playoff spots. Potentially, unnecessarily dropping points there. Yeovil, of course, they did play quite recently, a 1-1 draw there. They've also had a 1-1 draw just 2 games ago against Gateshead, and the game before that they did win 1-0 versus Maidenhead, another team who is sitting in that kind of middle of the pack at the moment, and they did win that game via an own goal. So, some fine margins in their recent games. Yeovil and Gateshead both had opportunities against Boreham Wood, but as it stands, the teams that they have beaten have, of course, been quite decent as well. In terms of the games that Maidstone have played, they seem to have bettered our record. They've managed to win against Maidenhead, Scunthorpe, Dorking Wanderers, Torquay and the South End. So of course a win in there against Dorking, actually their biggest of the season, a 4-1 victory over Dorking. Of course we did lose that game 4-2. They did beat Torquay 1-0 as well, I do believe, so similar to Maidstone in that sense, and then a few more opposition teams which we are yet to face as the Stones. But as a whole, looking at Boreham Wood's results so far this season, there's not really too much you can falter. As I said, in recent games, teams like Yeovil and Gateshead have had a go, but have not managed to claim 3 points versus them. They did, however, pick up a point, which of course, given Boreham Wood's position in the table, is a pretty successful game for those teams. So that does give, I think, Maidstone and, of course, hopefully you and myself as fans, a little bit more hope going into this game. Looking at the teams they faced, bottom half, relegation candidates, that type of team, and they have dropped points to them. that does bode well for us coming into this game. I know most Maidstone fans will fancy us above other potential relegation candidates at the moment, for example Yeovil, Gateshead, Torquay, those sort of teams. So we would like to think that we can better the results that they got, which of course could potentially spell a win for us. And coming off the back of that Chesterfield game last week, we are on a good high wave at the moment. Of course, we did lose that game, but it was very, very fine margins indeed. Of course, that last minute conceded goal against Chesterfield, Oldacre did top it off to, of course, secure the 3 points for them. But looking at their recent form compared to our recent form, they have picked up more points, but they have dropped off just a tiny little bit and are conceding a few more chances. Not necessarily a few more goals, but just a few more chances in games, which of course, if we can be clinical, which is something I'll get onto, may bode quite well for us. So hopefully we'll see some changes to the squad, and let's get onto that. For me, looking back at that Chesterfield game, of course we saw the return of a few players to this Maidstone side, probably the most notable being Tom Hadler in goal. For me, the defence was quite impressive against Chesterfield. We did, of course, slip in that final 10 minutes, which is something we've quite characteristically done so far this season, but I do think that will change in time. We did see Joe Lowell return to the squad as well, which of course is fantastic, and he looked very good at the back at times with George Fowler as well. Nice to see a back four who is so familiar with each other compared to last season. Of course, Ryan Galvin did feature in that game as well due to the injury to Binon Williams, but for me, I think we'll see the same back five unless there's any niggles or injuries. Looking at that midfield, I'll be very surprised if we didn't see the same again. That does seem to be what Hakan is doing at the moment, but he did trial a 4-4-2 throughout the Chesterfield game, and for me, that did bode quite well for us. Of course, we've seen the James Alabi impact off the bench, but for me, I do think we could see him starting in this game, and for me, I would personally like to see him start up front with Jack Boreham in a 4-4-2. And my reasoning for this is just because of some of the highlights that I've reviewed, in particular the Dorking game, Yeovil game, Gateshead game. They did manage to get a good number of opportunities versus Boreham by getting numbers forward and having a lot of different runners from different angles. So that's not something we've seen too much from Maidstone this season. Of course, we've stuck with that front three for the majority of it. Deacon, Barham, Christy Patterson, potentially not the most penetrative attack in the National League at the moment when it comes to breaking down lines and getting in behind players, but it's always nice to have that option of extra runners as well, and of course that is going to increase the likelihood of being hit on the fast break. But I do think this Maidstone team, with the likes of Ryan Galvin, Gavin Hoyt, George Fowler, all got a little bit of pace who could get back and help cover. It would be quite nice to see Maidstone getting a few players forward, and I think if we did maintain a 4-4-2 that we saw at times against Chesterfield, with potentially Christy Patterson on the right, Deacon on the left, Corn and Booty in midfield, and then of course Alabi and Barham up front, that could bode quite well for us. We have, of course, two big different options in Jack Barham and James Alabi up front. Definitely different players, but we do know that both of them can be quite clinical. James Alabi obviously got quite a good goals to minutes ratio so far, only really making substitute cameos throughout the season, picked himself up 2 goals, which is the same as Jack Barham so far, who has started the majority of games. That's not to say any negative comments about Jack. We haven't really played his style, but I do think that the combination of the two of them could allow us to play into Alabi, who in pre-season we did see him performing some very good hold-up play in games like the Enfield game to assist Solwandro Smith. So it will be interesting to see what we do in this game. I do think Boreham are able to be got at. They don't really concede many goals. The most they've conceded this season, I do believe, is 2. That was against Notts and Aldershot. Of course, in that loss they did pick up. So, we're not likely to score many goals. So, for me, the most important thing, at least, is staying solid at the back. As I said at the start of the video, they have averaged 1.5 goals per game. So, it's not massive, but we do need to be wary of that. They put 4 past Dorking when Dorking switched off late on in the game, did try and chase an equaliser after being 2-1 down, conceded 2 in the 90th plus minutes. So As I said, we do need to be careful. We do need to remain concentrated and solid at the back. I do think if we put in a similar defensive performance as we did against Chesterfield in this game, we could be all right in that aspect. I do think we will concede, just because Boreham would have got a way of finding a goal and getting a result. They have got some dangerous players in the team, Marsh and Dovlu. Not sure how to pronounce his name at all. Endlovu. I think it might be Endlovu. Both have 4 goals so far this season. Endlovu has got 8 games played, and Marsh has got 9 games played. So, they've got a couple players there who are able to score a goal. They've got some very fancy footwork up front. They do seem to take their chances when they come. So, again, we need to be really careful. We need Tom Hadler to have a very big game as well if some chances are going his way, and we just need to, as I said, remain calm, remain secured at the back, and focus on just seeing out that game. In terms of getting a goal, we could of course hit people on the break. We would hopefully have someone like James Alabi or Jack Barham up front who could potentially get through defences. If it's a one-on-one position, I would back either of them to score. Of course, Jack has missed a couple so far this season, but we got to remember he missed a lot of pre-season. We're really now only getting to that stage of the season where he is going to be picking up a bit more form. As we saw last season, missed pre-season, injured for a long period at the start of the season, and then of course only really scored, I think, his first goal in December, and then ended up as one of the league's top scorers. So we do need to recall the form that Jack Barham had last season and the potential for that to come back this season. And I think it is going to start to come forward a little bit more. So it would be nice to see us pick up a goal or 2 in this game. I do think the end result is going to be a 1-1 draw. As I said, I do think we'll concede. I do think we've got that potential to score. We have looked a little bit better coming forward, especially against Chesterfield. So for me, a 1-1 draw is going to be the final result in this game. As I said, if you do make your way down to the game, then of course full voice as expected. Boreham Wood probably won't have too many home fans, which is a good opportunity for us to get behind the boys and back them as per. So hopefully you did enjoy this little preview. Thank you all very much for watching. Do leave a like on the video and do subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing more content like this video, and I'll catch you all in the next one.